Looking forward to day 2 of the festival, and another good day of racing. Like always, you always want to get a good start. Looking to start well in the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, and then carry it on really through the day. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and now I'm going to give you my selections for day 2.
So on to the opening race on day 2 of the festival, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, a grade 1 over 2 miles and 5 furlongs. My selection for this race is the highly touted Impere Pass for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. Impere Pass is a horse that's come under the radar really. There wasn't much talk about him going into this season, but things have changed certainly in the last 2 or 3 months. The horse has won his 2 novice hurdles today, both in taken style. The first being over 2 mile, 2 furlongs at Naas. And then he stepped back in trip into the Moscow Flyer, where once again his jumping was electric. He showed he had proven pace, tactical speed, and like he did on his first start, he showed that he's got stamina in abundance. I do feel that the step up in trip to the 2.5 miles is the correct decision by Connections. He was left in the Supreme Novices Hurdle until recently, but I think they've taken the correct route, and I do feel that stamina is this horse's forte. I do think he's a horse that jumps nice and smoothly, and that'll be a good asset going forward for this Cheltenham, and going forward when he takes to fences probably next season. So Impere Pass is a horse. There's been a lot of hype around him in recent days, and the vibes from the yard are that he's working very well. So that's another positive to take out for him. Of the opposition, to be honest with you, it does look quite a strong renewal on paper. So Imperial Pass is gonna have to be more than useful to beat some of these. You've got the best from Britain here, Herms Allen for Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden. He's a horse that I've also been massively impressed with this season. He ran at Cheltenham earlier on in the season in one of the trials, and then more recently he went to the Shallow Hurdle at Newbury around Christmas time, in which was testing conditions, but he was more than up to the job. I do feel that better ground would be more suitable for Herms Allen, which it doesn't seem to be going to be that way for him, unfortunately. But even so, he's still got a big chance, and I know Connections rate him very highly, and he, not just for this season, but probably going forward for when he goes and takes his novice chase campaign next season. Another one to mention from Ireland is Goodland. Goodland won the opening race at the Dublin Racing Festival. I know Connections think an awful lot of him too. He's got proven stamina. He's obviously won over a little bit further than the Ballymore trip, which certainly on soft ground at Cheltenham could be vital. So stamina is something that you're going to have to need, certainly with these more testing conditions. So I would say those are the three, for me, those are the three that are going to be the main protagonists in the race. You've also got Gaelic Warrior. Gaelic Warrior is another one. He's very highly touted. He ran a big race on his English debut last year in the Boodles Handicap Hurdle. He only just went down by a short margin to Brazil. He has been running in handicaps this season. I think that he was obviously allocated a nice handicap mark, so they've taken advantage of that, and he's duly obliged, winning his handicaps in taking fashion. He does jump out to the right, which would be a concern, obviously. So I feel that his jockey Patrick Mullins, is probably going to have to, ride a very tactical race on him, probably keep him up the inside of other horses, and try and keep him jumping straight as possible, because jumping out to the right at Cheltenham's going to cost you dearly. Certainly Upton class as well, it could be pretty costly. So they're going to have to try and bury him and keep him jumping nice and straight for as long as possible, and try and like nurse him into the race really. But he's got a chance, but I just feel that a couple of others in this race are a little bit stronger than him. So yeah, my selection for that race is Impere Pass for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. So onto the Brown Advisory Novices Chase, a grade 1 over 3 miles. My selection for this race is the Gordon Elliott trained Jerry Colomb. Jerry Colomb is a horse I've held in high regard for quite a while now. He's unbeaten in 7 starts, and he's a horse that's got a lot of potential going forward. I do feel he's a horse that's pretty ground dependent. He's a horse that will certainly appreciate cutting the ground, and obviously now the rain has arrived at Cheltenham, that is obviously going to play to his strengths. Also, I feel the step up in trip to 3 miles is also going to benefit this horse massively, and the combination of both trip and ground is the reason for him being my selection in this race. Obviously beforehand it looked like we were leading up to be running this Cheltenham Festival on a more sounder surface, and that would have been a little bit of a worry for me, but now the ground seems to have changed pretty significantly. I feel Jerry Colomb is going to take the world of beating in this race. He obviously ran last time in the Scilly Isles Novices Chase at Sandown. He beat the Nicky Ensign trained Balco Coastal. He did briefly look in trouble just before they swung into the straight there, but come the line he won pretty authoritatively, I thought, and you can just have that impression in him that we've not quite seen the best of him yet. And as I said before, now these conditions seem to have turned in his favour. I do feel he's going to take a serious amount of beating in this race. Obviously they've touted him as a future Gold Cup horse as well, and Gordon Elliott is he's pretty masterful at developing these horses from novices and then going on with them into senior company later down the line. So yeah, Jerry Colomb is my selection for this race. Of the others, I'll have to give a mention to Sir Gerard for Willie Mullins. Obviously we all know that Sir Gerard's a horse with huge amount of ability himself. He's won the champion bumper around Cheltenham a couple of years ago, and then last year he followed up by winning the Ballymore Novices Hurdle. I don't think this season's gone entirely to plan by the looks of things. He had a few hold-ups early on in the season, and at one stage I didn't even think we were going to see him at Cheltenham, but they did get a run into him a good month or so ago now, probably a little bit longer than that actually. And although he didn't jump very well, I say he didn't jump well, that he was sketchy at a few of the fences, but all in all, it was a fair round of jumping for his seasonal chase debut, so I won't mock him too much for that. But one thing he did show that impressed me was his huge engine. From 2 out until the line, he really did pick up well, and then from the back of the last, he put distance between himself and his rival. So yeah, obviously inexperience is a problem for me. Not many horses, or hardly any horses, with one chase start come to the Brown Advisory and win. So that's a stat that's hugely against Sir Gerard. But he is a horse with huge ability, as I said, and you couldn't fully write him off.
from England, we've got Time Hill for Philip Hobbs. He's a horse that was mixing it in the deep end over staying in the Staying Hurdle division last year, and he's a horse that's, you know, he's got a lot of ability. Obviously he went to Aintree at the back end of last season and won there. Since he's gone novice chasing, he's had a bit of a up and down experience. He looked very disappointing on his race against McFabulous earlier in the season, but he did then go to Kempton and run a lot better. Obviously his jumping, like a lot of novice chasers, some of them, they just find jumping a little bit more difficult, and I just wonder, will Time Hill be one of those horses? He's got a lot of ability, he's got huge cruising speed, but I do just feel that maybe one of these fences will find him out. So as much as I think he's a horse with a lot of ability, and I won't fully write him out because he's one of them horses that have, if he's there coming down towards the second last, you know he's going to be a horse that's staying on, because he's got that engine and he's got that ability from you know, running in them big grade 1 Stayers Hurdle races, so you know he's got the class. But for me, all in all, I just feel that his jumping will let him down, and he's not going to be for me on this occasion. So yeah, I'll those for me though are the three main horses to concentrate on in this Brown Advisory. Obviously you've got a couple of others in there that are probably going to be running for place money, but yeah, I'm going to stick with Jerry Colomb. I do think he's the horse that's he's got all the form in the book. The conditions have now absolutely come his way, and I just feel that we might see this horse go up another level now that's the case. So yeah, Jerry Colomb is my selection for the Brown Advisory Novices Chase.
So on to the feature race on day 2 at the Cheltenham Festival, which is the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase, a grade 1 over 2 miles. Where better to start than the reigning champion, Energumen, trained by Willie Mullins. Last year this race was built up as the race of the week, the highly anticipated clash between Energumen and Shishkin. Unfortunately, the big clash didn't materialise due to Shishkin pulling up early on in the race due to a couple of well-documented problems which have since come out. He's back on track now himself, going for the Ryanair on Thursday. But back to the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Energumen obviously won last year's race. He then went on to win at the Punchestown Festival, beating stable companion Chacun Pour Soi. This season, he kicked off his campaign with a nice smooth success back at home in Ireland, and then he came back to Cheltenham then for the trials day, and he was defeated on that occasion by 2 of his rivals, which will be lining up in this year's champion chase in the names of Editor the Gee and Edward Stone. So then, obviously, on there's a lot of talk since that race. What is the reason? Why did Energumen get beat? Is he the same horse that he was last year? Was he not right on the day? There's a lot of questions to answer. But for me, it's not all lost with him. I wouldn't write him off, coming back and retaining his title. I do think he was disappointing on the day, nevertheless, and he more of a surprise than anything was his jumping let him down. Usually he's a nice quick jumper, but he just didn't seem to be on it at Cheltenham on trials day. And not just that, I find he's a horse that's better when he tries to dominate, when he tries to go out there and dominate and go from the front. obviously Editor de Geet's a pacey horse in his own right, and he's the horse that obviously got out there in front and made all, and he was not for passing. But I do feel like that things might be a little bit different this time. Being in the Energumen camp, I'd like to think that he'll press for the lead a little bit sooner, and he'll just try and get him, you know, on it a little bit sooner. I just felt he was a bit lethargic last time, and a bit just not quite right on the day. But you know, you have to give horses an excuse at least once anyway, and I'm willing to give him one. So for me, Energumen is definitely the horse to beat, but he does obviously have to put his last run behind him. Obviously, mentioned Edwardstone there. Edwardstone won last year's Arkle. Very nice performance. He's not really done too much wrong. He came back and won the Tingle Creek in great style. Looked very good on that occasion. Probably a career best performance. And that performance would put him right there to win this champion chase. He then went to Kempton around Christmas time, and he unseated his rider very early on in the race, and that was obviously disappointing to see. He since obviously ran then in the trial at Cheltenham, as mentioned earlier, and he was second to Editor de Geet. He was giving him a good few lengths start, I'd say, and you know, he made smooth headway at the business end of the race, and he actually briefly got himself to the front, but he just seemed to tie up during the run-in late on in that race, and he just got fended off on the day. But I'd imagine he'd strip a lot fitter this time round, and I think he is the one most likely to serve it up to Energumen. But he'll have to jump well, and the key to him is not to get too outpaced in the early stages of the race. He is a horse that's got a nice turn of foot, and in the main he does jump well, but I just think that he just needs to stay in touch and then try and come with that run late on. Editor de Geet, obviously he's done nothing wrong, but for me, he did get the run of the race a little bit last time, and I just have a feeling these other two will be a bit more aware of it this time. And for me, I don't really fancy him this time round, although he's a solid yardstick, and he obviously won on merit that day, and he is due a lot of respect. Of the others, Grenetin from Paul Nicholls, he ran in the Game Spirit last time at Newbury. He seemed to need the run that day. He blew up from about 2 out, and he just didn't look quite the same horse he was early in the season. But Paul Nicholls did say that he left a lot of work on him, and he thinks he'll come on for the run, so he might be one to sneak into a place. But yeah, all in all, it's a good race, and it'll be very intriguing to see the outcome between these top three at the head of the market, to see how things pan out this time. But yeah, my selection for the Queen Mother Champion Chase is Energumen from Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. So then, on to the fifth race on the card. I won't dwell on the race too much, but I'll just briefly go through the Glen Farkless Cross Country Chase. Obviously, we've got last year's winner in here, Delta Work, who should take a fair bit of beating again, if in similar form to this time last year. The horse came back to Cheltenham in January, towards the end of January, where he finished third. On that occasion, he was given a lump of weight away to the two horses that finished in front of him. But obviously, back here now at the festival, they'll be running off levels, and based on that, he's got a fair amount in hand on both of those. I think the rain softened ground will help the horse, and if he's in that similar form to anything like he was last year, he's going to take an awful lot of beating. So Delta Work would be my
selection for the Glenfarclas Cross Country Chase. Obviously, a stable companion looks likely to run in this as well, Galvin. Galvin's been a horse that's been running in top level races. He hasn't been quite in the same sort of form like in the last 12 months or so. Well, certainly this season anyway. But he's a horse that brings a fair amount of form to the table, and if he does switch to these cross-country fences and takes to them, he could be a horse that's very interesting coming into this race. But yeah, all in all, I think Delta Works is going to be almighty hard to beat in this race, and he would be my selection. Right, so now we're gonna go to the final race on the card for day 2, the Weatherby's Champion Bumper, a national hunt flat race, grade 1. Where do I start? Usually Willie Mullins is a good place to start when you talk about bumpers. He's won this race on 12 occasions down the years, starting with a horse Wither or Witch, and then Florida Pearl, and then his most recent one being Facile Vega, winning last year's renewal. He's got 10 horses, I believe, in this year's lineup. So as far as numbers go, he's got quite a high percentage chance of winning this race. However, just reading vibes and comments throughout the last few months, the impression I was getting was he wasn't quite sure that he had a horse that was like standing out over the others. They all seem to be pretty much similar ability as far as I was getting. Not one of them really put their arm in the air to say I'm the number one. So hence why that is probably the reason why he's gone into this race with a good number of runners. Of his runners, I must say the ones that have caught my eye probably mostly is firstly I'd say a horse called It's For Me. The stable jockey Paul Townend will be riding him. He ran in a Navan Bumper probably a couple of months ago now, and he was very impressive, travelled well throughout the race and quickened nicely. I don't think the form stacked up to much, if I'm being honest, but it was just the manner in which he did it which caught my eye. I think he's a horse that you're going to have to keep an eye on, not just for this race, but going forward, maybe into next season. Once he goes into his novice hurdle campaign, he could be a horse to look forward to for something like the Supreme Novices Hurdle. So yeah, keep an eye on him. His name's It's For Me. Another one of Willie Mullins's that's probably got to have a lot of respect for is the one that is Willie Mullins's son Patrick's going to be riding, a horse called Factor File. In my opinion, Factor File ran in the strongest bumper I've seen this year, and that was at the Dublin Racing Festival, behind a horse that I'm going to mention in a moment. He was second on that occasion, and he just seemed to get outpaced during the race, but he did finish strongly, and I do think slower ground and a strong gallop will really suit this horse, and I do think he's a player, certainly. So that's Factor File. Now I'll mention a couple of the horses that are actually my two main fancies in the race, and the first being a horse that JP McManus has recently purchased in the name of A Dream to Share. A Dream to Share is one of the horse that beat a Factor File last time at the Dublin Racing Festival. He's had 3 runs to date and has won all 3. In that grade 2, as I mentioned, that he beat Factor File in, he seemed to travel more ominously than Factor File. He bided his time, he come there smoothly on the outside and then quickened really well inside the final furlong and put a good bit of distance between him and the Willie Mullins horse. Factor File's A Dream to Share is trained by John Kiley, and he's a horse that's going to come into the race looking like he's going to go off favourite in which looks a competitive race. So Dream to Share is the first horse that would interest me a great deal for this race. I think if he can put a performance together similar to what he did last time, he's going to take an awful lot of beating in which looks a competitive race. Of the others, a horse I like that I saw, he's not been on the track for a while now, but he was last seen at Down Royal. It's a horse called Better Days Ahead, trained by Gordon Elliott and ridden by Jamie Codd. He was beaten at fairly short odds on his debut, but then he saw off a Willie Mullins well-touted horse at Down Royal. Again, he was ridden patiently, and then at the business end of the race, he was asked to go and win the race, and he picked up well and quickened away. The Willie Mullins horse on that occasion did rally late, but Better Days Ahead seemed to have the race won at that time. Obviously, not running for a while might be a little bit of a worry, but I know he's highly regarded, and he's a fair price too, around the 12-1 mark, and I think he's one maybe to keep an eye on too. And again, looking forward to next season, he's one that's probably gonna take top rank in these novice hurdles. So yeah, that's Better Days Ahead. He would be my each way selection in the race, but Dream to Share would be my main win selection for the race. So that's the champion bumper covered. So then, just to finish off with day 2, I'm going to give you my selections now, my win and each way selections. First of all, my win selection on day 2 is in the first race, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle. And that horse is Impere Pass for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. Now, onto my each way selection. My horse is fairly short price. The price seems to have contracted over the last few days. Therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an each way double instead, just to boost the price up a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to give you both Hermes Allen, also in the first race, and we're going to double that horse up with A Dream to Share in the final race, the champion bumper. So that's an each way double, my 2 each way horses there. I've put them in a double. So yeah, just to recap, my win selection's Imperial Pass, and my each way double is Hermes Allen and A Dream to Share. So that's it for day 2. Thank you.